I think a lot of the world's nations were caught off guard with what's going on with Russia, because you think stocking up on fertilizer would have been something that the wizards of smart would have foreseen. Hey, y'all. Y'all see the title? I'm going to get into this. I'm going to try not to drag it out too long on you guys. And thanks to all you guys that showed up for our late night stream, the Grand Inquisitors with Truth Teller 410 and Super Sly 75, and yours truly. I really appreciate all you guys' support. Okay, now, and we didn't talk about this, but we did throw in a little bit of fertilizer talk. And fertilizer, crop, well, we can make our own fertilizers. Look, there's a saying I've been saying for a long time, and I just used the potato as an example. If you wait until you're down to your last potato to cut it up, to plant it, to grow more potatoes, you're already dead. You're already starved to death, because before they produce, you will die. And I just picked the potato because it's a potato. It's easy. A potato, tomato. Didn't want to pick a tomato, pick a potato. It's easier to grow potatoes than it is tomatoes. For me anyway. I grew some in a bucket. I gave it a trial run. It took me 3 tries. On my 3rd try, I got it pretty good. So if I would have had to been dependent on that to eat, I would have starved. But anyway, I'm just saying, hey, I'd rather tell you the truth than tell you a fib. So let's go ahead and get into this, folks. Okay. Now, as sanctions bite Russia, fertilizer shortage imperils world food supply. This is from Reuters.com. Okay. See, guy with his tractor. That's a spreader. See, as it drives, this apparatus here. Some of them, most of them, I know are gear driven. Like you engage a mechanical PTO, and as you drive the vehicle, it spins, and you open the chute in the back, and it falls on there, and it just literally just slings the fertilizer out in a circular fashion like that. May it help if I just click the next one. Yeah. That's from inside the bed. You see the fertilizer in there. That's a pretty big field. Unbag, and that's how the fertilizer come. We roll over tractor trailers out here to get in accidents, and they be full, and I don't have one of these contraptions. So normally the company that the place where it was delivering it to, they had come up, well, how are we going to get our backhoe out there? Don't worry, I got a plan. And I've actually sent my low boys to people to get that so they can get their fertilizer, because, you don't want that all over the ground and in the storm drain. Oh, man, you asking for trouble. But anyway, there it is. I like that knife. I like that. Got a thumb hole. I like that. Okay, let's go on down here. Chicago. Sky high fertilizer prices have farmers worldwide scaling back its use and reducing the amount. Oops. Sorry. Might help if I scroll it where y'all can see it. Sky high fertilizer prices have farmers worldwide scaling back its use and reducing the amount of land they're planting. Fallout from the Ukraine-Russia conflict that has some agricultural industry veterans warning of food shortages. I'm no professional, but I don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blow. I done covered this in how many videos now? And you can see it now on the shelves. I can see it here. It's not super bad yet, but I can see it. I can see it in the veggies produce that's on the shelf. And it's only unless this deal gets ironed out, it's only going to get worse. Western sanctions on Russia, a major exporter of potash, ammonia, urea, and other soil nutrients, have disrupted shipments of those key inputs around the globe. Remember, I was telling you all about urea, about the diesel exhaust fluid, the shortage for, we come up shortage for that because the modern diesel engines and equipment, that's farming equipment and trucks, will not run. There's nothing wrong with the truck, but it got a sensor in it and all that other crap and that clean air BS and whatnot. Anyway, it's urea. It's urea based. So we're actually burning fertilizer, ingredient used for fertilizer just to run diesels. Okay. And that dries up. The government going to have to turn the kill switch off and allow us to bypass that crap until things get by. I hate that diesel exhaust fluid stuff. But anyway, that's one of them. Russia is a major supplier. Fertilizer is key to keeping corn, soy, rice, and wheat yields high, and diesel. Growers are scrambling to adjust. The pivot can be seen in agricultural powerhouse Brazil, which they are. We covered that too, where some farmers are applying less fertilizer to their corn, and some federal legislators are pushing to open protected indigenous lands for the mining of potash. In Zimbabwe and Kenya, small farmers are reverting to using manure to nourish their crops. Yeah, I mean, the animal putting it down, you put it in the field. In Canada, one canola farmer has already stockpiled fertilizer for the 2023 season in anticipation of higher prices ahead. Yeah, if you're a farmer, because all farmers ain't highfalutin fat cat millionaires. Everybody ain't tied to Monsanto. There are still a lot of family ran farms out here, especially in the United States, and I'm quite sure there's other places too, third and fourth generation farmers. You know what I mean? And that Monsanto ain't, they didn't manage to keep from getting stepped on by them. But I'm telling you, without farmers, man, everybody worldwide, you're done. Farmers elsewhere are making similar moves. Reuters spoke with 34 people on 6 continents, including grain producers, agricultural analysts, traders, and farm groups. All expressed concern about the cost and availability of fertilizer. In the United States alone, fertilizer bills are expected to jump 12% this year after rising 17% in 2021, according to the American Farm Bureau Federation and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The USDA is one of the fingers on the left hand of God. I've been trying to tell people, but they don't listen. And the FDA is the middle finger on that same hand. You figure out why the middle finger. Some growers are contemplating switching to crops that require fewer nutrients. George Washington Carver done that, where he would rotate crops to put certain nutrients back in the soil that required little to no fertilizer. That's what the peanut was one of them. Because cotton just sucks the nutrients clean out of the soil, and it will deplete the soil if you don't plant something else to put it back in or re-fertilize it. Others say they'll simply use, others plan to cultivate less acreage. Others say they'll simply use less fertilizer. A strategy crop experts predict will hurt yields. Of course it will. Production is more at risk in developing nations whose farmers have fewer financial resources to weather the storm, said Tony Will, chief executive of Illinois-based CF Industries Holding, a leading producer of nitrogen fertilizer. And also with certain fertilizers, it takes a certain amount of water as well, because if not, the fertilizer literally burns the crop, not burn as in fire, but it it'll kill, almost like you over fertilized it, because it doesn't have the water, to mix with. So, but people in rainy things, that's not an issue. Us here in the United States, rain, either we got too much or not enough. My concern at the moment is actually one of a food crisis on a global basis, Will told Reuters. And produce is a global industry. It really is. I mean, whether I like it or not, it is a global industry, because stuff comes over. We send stuff out. Fair was my old saying, fair exchange is no robbery, but it is what it is. On Saturday, Peru declared a state of emergency in its agriculture sector over fears of food insecurity. The decree said the nation's planted areas have fallen 0.2% since August due to rising fertilizer prices, and that the volume of grain Peru imports for animal feed has likewise declined over cost concerns. The government is now drafting a plan to increase the country's food supply. Double whammy. Global fertilizer prices were already high prior to Russia's February 24th invasion of the Ukraine, as record natural gases and coal prices forced some fertilizer makers to cut output in that energy-hungry sector. Ukraine's cities have been besieged by missiles, tanks. Yeah, we know all that. Russia denies targeting. Yeah, whatever. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't want to take the conversation there to war. I'm trying to keep it on the topic. Western nations responded, with the economic sanctions. We know that imposed new Russia, while the United States and the European Union imposed new sanctions on Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who has provided support for Russia's offensive. Combined, Russia and Belarus account for more than 40% of global exports of potash last year, one of three critical nutrients used to boost crop yields, Dutch lender Rabobank said this month. Additionally, Russia accounted for about 22% of global exports of ammonia, 14% of the world's urea exports, and about 14% of monoammonium phosphate. I can't believe I knew how to say that. All key kinds of fertilizers. Sanctions have disrupted sales of fertilizers and crops from Russia. Many Western banks and traders are steering clear of Russian supplies for fear of running afoul of the rapidly changing rules, while shipping firms are avoiding the Black Sea region due to safety concerns. Well, it all amounts to a double whammy for the global food supply. Russia and Ukraine are major grain producers, especially Ukraine. Together, they account for about 30% of the global wheat exports and 20% of corn exports. I'll link my video that I done on this to this one here. I'll put it in the drop box there. Grain shipments through the Black Sea have already been disrupted. Stalled deliveries from those two countries have helped spur galloping global food inflation. The World Bank said last week that a number of developing countries face near-term wheat supply shortages due to the high dependence of Ukraine's exports. But the fertilizer crisis is, in some respects, more worrying because it could inhibit food production in the rest of the world that could help take up the slack. Maximo Torero, chief economist for the UN Food and Agricultural Organization. If we don't resolve the problem of fertilizer and trade of fertilizers don't continue, then we'll have a very serious problem of food supply next year, Torero told Reuters. Brazil is at risk. Brazil, the world's biggest soybean exporter, relies heavily on imported fertilizers such as potash, which accounted for 38% of the crop's nutrients it used last year. Russia and Belarus were the source of half of those shipments. Prior to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, Brazilian farmers were already reducing corn plantings due to rising fertilizer prices. Soybean cultivation will likely be impacted as well. with growers expanding more slowly than in previous years, according to AgroConsult, a Brazilian agriculture consulting firm. In the west central state of Mato Grosso, farmer Kairon Giacomelli told Reuters he has already reduced fertilizer use on his current corn crop. He said he'll do the same when he plants soybeans later this year, a move he reckons might shrink his harvest by at least 8%. Giacomelli says fertilizer is hard to get and that some dealers won't finalize sales until cargo ships dock in Brazil. He's still kicking himself for not closing a purchase he was negotiating just before Russia invaded Ukraine. I got distracted and now I'm paying more, Giacomelli says. Lawyers for Brazilian farm states, meanwhile, are pushing for legislation that would open indigenous lands in the Amazon for potash mining. Makes sense to me. That measure is opposed by members of the local Mura tribe, oh boy, who says mining would despoil the natural habitat upon which they depend. The bill is still making its way through the nation's Congress. Sit back and watch the flames. Something's gonna give. The levee will break. In Zimbabwe, scarce and pricey imports have forced corn growers such as Boniface Mutis to make their own fertilizer. We mix cow dung or chicken waste with zinc, he said. Well, that's the way it used to be done. It's the same in rural Kenya. Farmers Mary Kamau said she too have slashed purchases of commercial fertilizer and is using manure to nourish the coffee and avocados she grows on 12 acres in Maranga County. She worries about the consequences for her family. I don't know if it's true, but I heard changing fertilizer actually changes the flavor, the hint of flavor in certain foods. I don't know if that's true or not. If I don't get a good harvest, I don't get good prices. Yeah, your yield. Yeah. And that will affect me for the next 2 years. It's not just this season, Kamau said. Fewer acres, less fertilizer. We're almost done here. In the United States, 5th generation New Mexico farmer Mike Berry has similar worries. I told you a lot of these farms are, 4th and 5th generation, been around forever. In the same family hand, you hand it down. You got to have kids. You got to make kids because you got to pass it to your kids, and then your kids pass it to you. You got to make sure mama fertile and make sure your son marries and have kids. That's the only way you got to keep that farm. He recently paid $680 a ton for liquid nitrogen to fertilize his corn crop. An exorbitant price, he said, was 232% above last year's price. Great googly moogly. Barry says he plans to cut his spring plantings of corn for livestock feed to about 300 acres from his usual 400 to 600 acres. Barry said he will also reduce applications of liquid nitrogen by 30%, which could drop his yields by 25%. Yeah, I know he done the math on it. Bottom line, we're going to produce less. That might seem short-sighted considering commodity prices have jumped sharply in recent weeks, but the cost of growing crops is outpacing potential revenue for many farmers. Planting decisions are increasingly being made not on market fundamentals, but rather on the cost of production driven by the price of supply of fertilizer. Dozens of U.S. lawmakers wrote in the March 17th letter to the U.S. International Trade Commission. They were seeking relief from duties on fertilizer imports from Morocco and Trinidad and Tobago. U.S. Farm Don Beatty described the stress process of securing enough fertilizer for this year's planting. It's nuts, said Batty, who grows corn and soybeans on 1,500 acres in Lexington, Nebraska. By the time they get a price and they quote it to you, the prices change. I've actually done business with somebody in Lexington, Nebraska. Nothing to do with farming, though. Y'all be good. Asia is struggling too. India, which imports fertilizer for its sprawling agriculture sector, is increasingly turning to Canada and Israel to replace its Russian supplies. Thailand, meanwhile, is facing pressure on its signature rice crop. Russia and Belarus accounted for about 12% of its fertilizer imports last year, Thai government data shows. But buying from elsewhere could prove tricky, in part because domestic price controls on fertilizer are squeezing Thai importers as global market prices explode. According to president of the Thai fertilizer, I'm sorry, sir, Plin Praka, I'll leave it like that, of the Thai Fertilizer and Agricultural Supplies Association. Plus, you're competing with other people. Y'all are fighting for that same fertilizer because now you got to go to somewhere else that you ain't never done business with before. And they're used to dealing with this guy, that guy, that guy. You're the new kid on the block and you're fighting for scraps. If you're a merchant and you're absolutely going to lose money, will you still import more stuff? Plin said. China last year imported fertilizer exports curbs to protect its own farmers as global prices soared due to strong demand and high energy prices. Beijing was expected to see these restrictions this year, potentially boosting world supply, said Gavin Zhu, principal fertilizer analyst in the Shanghai office of commodities consultancy CRU. But he said that less likely now with the global market in chaos. Concerns over rising inflation and the protracted Ukraine war have some farmers planning well ahead. In Manitoba, Canada, corn and canola farm Bert Peter recently agreed to spend more than $500,000 Canadian dollars buying 80% of the fertilizer he'll need for 2023. Although prices are soaring, he figured things could still get worse. We might not be over after 1 year, Peter said. That's it. I'll leave the link in case somebody wants to go back and read it because Nick reads too damn fast. Or just slow. Or if you think I read fast, go to YouTube, slow me down a quarter. If you think I read too slow, go to YouTube, knock me up a quarter, and you get done with it faster. Y'all be good and be safe and keep your head on a swivel, y'all. Let's go to work. Bye.